Welcome to Ripple Podcast. My name is Allie Lang, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with one of our graduates from Barbara's Place, Stina. She's going to share a little bit about her story with us. So, Stina, tell me a little bit about your life growing up.
Growing up, I really didn't grow up with any kind of religion per se. I understood bits and pieces from, different belief systems, and some Christianity in there. But I think kind of the idea that I got of Christianity was a little muddled or a little varied based upon just the families that I had learned things from, or, different things that I had witnessed. So it was a little confusing for me. So really it was just kind of like, be a good person, kind of morally correct. And that's the best way to be, not having any kind of belief system other than, be a good person. And that's kind of it. Never really talked about, what happens after you pass. And yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about growing up and kind of the introduction to your addiction.
Okay. It's funny. I never thought that I would become addicted to anything. Growing up, you had struggles, different things that happen, in your life that kind of form who you are and how you react to things. It could be a positive way, it could be a negative way. And I remember being introduced to alcohol probably before I was of age, before 21, but it was something that was done every once in a while or socially or on the weekend. And so I never felt as though it had control over my life. I didn't think it was a problem or an addiction. And that was for many, many years. My real addiction, real problem, it was almost like a shift in the relationship between alcohol and I. It wasn't drinking socially anymore. It was, now we're at home and having something to drink, when before it was, you would go out. And I remember watching a show called Intervention. And a lot of people on the show, they talked about their addiction and how it affected them. And I remember watching a woman on the show where she was sneaking like mini bottles into work and drinking at work. And I couldn't imagine, I was like, that could never be me. I can't imagine, doing something like that until you're in it, and you don't realize. And it's like, once you've kind of started down that road, when, my struggles that I was facing became too much for me, I just kind of wanted to drown it out. And alcohol was something I knew. It was something that was legal and not necessarily frowned upon, at least, in the circle of friends or people that I knew. And so when I started using it more and more to drown out the sadness or the struggle, then you'd do something or say something, while you're, under the influence of alcohol. And coming out of it, you realize it was inappropriate, or you realize it was bad. And then you feel guilty about that. And so now, you compile that guilt onto all the struggles you're facing. So it's just this perpetual cycle, and it just continues to get worse and worse. And it's almost like you can't get enough. You want to hide so badly. So you just continue to drink more and more. At least that's, how it was with me. And the biggest part of it was kind of really a 2-year span. I didn't look at it as though it was a lifetime of alcoholism, when really it was, because I didn't view drinking alcohol as a negative thing. But it was really that 2 years, where it shifted from social, drinking, to now I'm drinking to run from things or to forget things. And that was like the worst of it.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the moment that you knew you needed help.
It was an ultimatum from my husband, basically saying, I can't do this anymore. I love you. I've tried to, basically coddle you. He tried to figure out what to do and really didn't know, what to do. So he tried taking alcohol away from me, or taking, money away from me. And I would figure out, a way around it. And then, of course, that just brought more guilt and shame. But it was really kind of an ultimatum of like, I love you, but I can't, subject our marriage to this, myself to this, our son to this. And so, for the health of myself and our son, and for you, I'm going to need to step aside. And so really it was the realization of I'm about to lose everything that's important to me. You know, my husband, my son, they'll be gone and I'll be on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
As hard as a moment as that is, that's what led you to us. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you heard about Barbara's Place?
So Barbara's Place, I heard about through, it's funny because we actually lived about 2 blocks down from the church that we attend. We ended up becoming members there and professing our faith there and being baptized there. So it's come full circle and it's an amazing thing. But our church down the street had ties to Keswick previously. They knew people that had come through, and they support America's Keswick. And so the pastor there at the time asked, you know, can you come in and sit down and can we talk, you know, about what's going on and see if this would be like the right fit for you and your family. And so it was a pastor, the pastor and a friend of mine who sat down, and I just kind of went through everything, and they said, yeah, this is definitely this, you know, we think what God wants you to do is to go to Keswick.
Now, Barbara's Place is a 6-month program, which is a long period of time. So tell me a little bit about the transition into Barbara's Place.
The transition in, I think the worst part of it was the drive up and then watching my family leave. That was, you know, I knew I had to do it. That was the most devastating part to me, and it was, you know, hard to work through. But I think how it operates, you know, was in my life such a blessing because it's, you know, built on kind of routines. You know, you wake up at a certain time, you're responsible, you're accountable. And so me being a working mom, routines were never an issue for me. That was something kind of I gravitate towards. And so it gives you also the opportunity to, you know, you've been plucked out of your life and plopped into this unfamiliar environment, you know, surrounded by people you've never met before. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming, but, you know, working in the classroom setting where, and also doing the, not the hospitality, but
Housekeeping.
like the housekeeping, sorry. Doing the housekeeping, it gives you an opportunity to kind of get to know people in a more relaxed setting instead of, you know, just, okay, well, what do? You're actually, you know, doing something while you're getting to know people. And so that was, you know, an absolute blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you guys take a lot of classes while you're here. You do a lot of in-depth work, and I know you worked hard while you were here. So tell me what God taught you during this time.
God taught me love. And that's something that, you know, you say the word love, people tell you what that kind, you know, what that kind of or word is supposed to mean, what the connotation is, but, you know, you don't always understand it, you know what I mean? Especially if you've never been raised in an environment where you like a Christian environment where you understand God's creation and you understand the fall and why sin is here, you can't really understand God's love. And so, you know, learning that here, and why I say love is the biggest part of it. While I was gone, my husband, he travels a lot for work. And, you know, we had, at the time, you know, EJ was a lot younger. I think he was probably in 3rd grade. So, you know, our son, what are we going to do with our son? Who's going to take care of him? Who's going to watch him while I'm here and while my husband's away? It was actually our pastor and his family that took in our son and, you know, just raised him and loved him and protected him and taught him. And, you know, for someone that you've never met before, you know, you met him once, you kind of talked about what's going on in your life, and then all of a sudden their family is caring for your child, you know, like one of their own. I mean, that's love, you know. I've never in my life experienced anything like that. Like, you know, who in the world would do something like that? But that, you know, God's people, you know, yeah. So, love.
That's enough, right?
Yeah.
So, how many years ago did you graduate now?
Oh gosh, that was 2017, November of 2017.
Wow. So you've been out for a few years now. So tell me what it's like being out, where you still see God in your life since you've been out.
It's amazing. And it's actually where can't I see God? And there's, he's everywhere in everything. It's what's awesome about it is just to see him working in your life. And you might not realize it at the moment, but then you can look back on things, and see his hand in it all, orchestrating things, from, just the smallest detail. And well, I'll say this from start to finish, how I got introduced to Keswick actually is bigger than just knowing about it from our church. And I see God's hand in that. So about 3 years before I came into Keswick, into Barbara's place, I was going to work. I had a new job, and I needed someone to watch our son. I had never had anyone, watch our son before, so it was kind of a big deal to me. We found a family that was about 2 blocks down from where we lived. And so we were introduced to them, met them. I knew that they were Christians, but at that point, God knew I wasn't ready to hear, his message. I thought that was great. I know that Christians are good people. And so, that kind of went along with having trust in them to watch our son. But it was, 3 years after that same family, they had ties to Emmanuel Church, which led me, to America's Keswick. So I can see God working. He knew exactly in that moment when I was going to have, I was at the bottom of the biggest, deepest well, that's who I would listen to. He placed them in our lives 3 years before. So at this very moment, 3 years later, they could minister to me, show me unconditional love. So it's that watching God work in things and, just waiting and seeing his hand, praying to him and, having faith and trust and knowing he's going to work. And then, whether it's 2 seconds later, 2 days later, 2 years later, seeing him answer and just being amazed at the scope and breadth of, what he can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty. And the truth is, maybe this is your God moment for those of you who are watching right now. Maybe this is God reaching out to you and orchestrating a moment for you to find the help that you need, whether that's here or somewhere else. And so my hope and prayer is that if Stina's testimony encouraged you and spoke to your heart, that you will like and share this video so that it might have the same ripple effect in the life of someone else. And we hope and pray that God will bless you. Thank you.